Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Ben Crossman, and everyone out there, how you doing? Hopefully you're doing well, and you are ready for, of course, Computer America. And not really much to say. Today on the program, we have a full hour of computer and technology news, and we have a ton of stories, ton of stories. It's going to be a lot of fun, so let's go ahead and get into it. But before we do, computeramerica.com, that's where you'll find everything, including the show notes. It will have past shows, future shows. It will have any articles that we talk about, any videos that we show, anything that we discuss. Hey, it will be in the show notes at computeramerica.com. Check it out. Check out all the fun stuff we have there. And, of course, follow us on social media. Be sure to check out the live video portion and the podcast. Okay, now, all that being said, let's go ahead and get started with computer and technology news. Everyone, here we go. All right, everyone. So I think for our first story, the one that we're going to do, we have a lot of different ones. Let's go ahead and talk about. All right, so this one's probably going to affect the most people, and by the most people, I mean about 147 million of you. And of course, that's for the U.S. And what I'm talking about is none other than the Equifax breach. Yeah, you're wondering, wow, what else is there to say about that? It was awful. It was horrible. I can't believe we're still talking about this. Well, now comes the part that's a little less horrible because we've dealt with the consequences. We have dealt with the fact that everyone has lost everything when it comes to privacy and security and your social security number, your address, how much you make, what you make, where you work, where you have worked before, and so on and so forth. There's a lot of information that was lost, and unfortunately, fortunately for you, the potential damages are way more than what we're about to talk about. But we have a settlement, and you can go claim for it. So to check if your information was part of the and I'm actually going to check mine right now, not on the air, of course. Let's see. So, and we're going to go ahead and, okay. So luckily I was not impacted by the incident. So there you go. Although I have a couple more family members to check. Let's go ahead and talk about Equifax. We'll include a link to the checker here on, here in the show notes. But here we go. Equifax breach, see if you're eligible, how to file a claim, and see how much you'll get. And for most people, the answer to that will be about $125. Wow, I know. Like I said, the potential damages are probably going to be much, much higher than that. But, they said that if you were among the 147 million people whose data was exposed, so yeah, pretty much 1 out of every 2 Americans, or, pretty near close, or actually probably closer to 1 out of 3 at this point. I think there's about 400 million people living in America, but 1 out of 3, 1 out of 2 people. They said that in 2017, you can now see if you're eligible to submit a claim, and then the commission, and then of course, file one to recover money spent or lost as a result of the hack. The Federal Trade Commission said this week that Equifax has agreed to pay at least $575 million and up to $700 million to help compensate victims of hackers who stole personal data from Equifax. Payments as part of the settlement can cover the cost to recover from security breach of the free credit report company, including recovering from the theft of your identity and unauthorized charges to your account. You can also submit a claim to cover the costs of protecting yourself from identity theft following the Equifax breach. So if you have done any of that, if you have fought back against hackers and things like that, due to being exposed from Equifax, you can, of course, reimburse your costs through this this reimbursement fund. And as part of that, you can also file for money, saying that even if you weren't part of the breach and don't file a claim, you can get free credit reports for 7 years. Of course, it's something that they agreed to. The breach resulted in hackers stealing social security numbers, addresses, credit card, and driver's license information, birth dates, and other personal data stored on their servers. The FTC alleged that the Free Credit Bureau failed to take reasonable steps to secure its network. Taking part in the Equifax settlement isn't completely straightforward. So you can check if you were part of the breach here. There's a link in the article which you can actually, and here's an example of what the website looks like if you're watching the video portion. You can find it at Eligibility. Tough word to spell, I know. Eligibility.equifaxbreachsettlement.com. And equifaxbreachsettlement.com is a website set up on behalf of Equifax concerning, the breach. .com. And you can do /English or EN/eligibility. So you can check that out there. But again, getting on with this, they said that the exact amount that Equifax will pay out is undetermined. The proposed settlement will start with a $300 million fund to compensate affected consumers. Equifax will also pay $175 million to state and district and $100 million to Consumer Financial Protection Bureau in penalties. So you can of course go in and check if you are eligible to receive a claim, and so on and so forth. And they also show here what it covers, as we mentioned, everything from fees paid to accountants and attorneys, cost of freezing your credit report, expenses related to the unauthorized charges, things like that. You can apply to have it reimbursed through this fund. And they said that you need to file or submit a claim by January 22nd, 2020. So you have, about 5-6 months. And on top of that, the soonest you will receive benefits will be January 23rd, 2020, when everything is, divvied out. And on top of that, you can also see here this other article very much in relation to this. This is from The Verge, talking about Equifax owes you a lot more, but here's how to get $125 from this week's settlement. Saying that the U.S. credit, obviously, we went over that. Now you can file a claim, which contains about $380 million for Consumer Restitution Fund as part of the class action lawsuit. You can check to see if you were, again, compromised, which all you have to do is put in your last name and put in the last 6 digits of your social security number, which would then match up to your records and whether or not they were actually compromised. And they said that you'll get something that says our records indicate your personal information was impacted by this incident, and from there on you head into the main page and file the claim. The form asks for simple things. From there you can request either a $125 check or prepaid card or free 3 bureau, so all 3 credit bureau monitoring. So to claim the money, you need to already have credit monitoring and must have it for another 6 months after you file the claim. So, yeah, the cost will only cover like $125, but it really can only go towards credit monitoring. There you go. So if you've had the money over over the free provided credit monitoring, you can simply sign up for free services like Credit Karma Today, which offer free daily credit monitoring from its partner TransUnion. A number of credit cards and Intuit's budget planning services Mint also offer some versions of credit monitoring for free. Additionally, there are paid services that do the same. So there you go. This article, we're going to include this one as well. It goes into the benefits as well and what you can do. And like I said, no money is going to be sent out until January 23rd, 2020. So you have a few months to get on this, but hey, it's been announced and you can go check out the tool. I'll be sure to check all my close family members because again, with 147 million people compromised, luckily I was not, but odds are someone probably within my own household was. So definitely go check that out. It's now's the time and just get it out of the way. Okay. So there's the first article. Let's go ahead and continue on. So how about we talk about let's see. There's one, and kind of speaking about bad things. This article was from yesterday, but I saw it again, and I was like, this is worth covering. It's something so. Don't do this, okay? I'm going to preface this. This is before we even get into the article. Don't do this. And I say that knowing full well that many of our listeners here are very technically savvy. Not only technically savvy, but they are they're beautiful, handsome, and very, very generous with their time. But I will say that's enough faceless flattery there. But I will say that a lot of them are programmers. A lot of you are IT specialists. You're programmers. You work in the tech industry. Obviously, if you have any kind of interest in technology, you are probably going to be involved in it on a day-to-day basis, as many people are. So I say this: none of you out there do this, because now a gentleman is facing 10 years in jail for putting in a logic bomb into a spreadsheet that causes the company to keep rehiring him. Check this out. I found this pretty weird. So this article is from Business Insider, and you can see the key points here, here on the video portion, but we're going to go ahead and get into the article, saying that we've heard of programmers who secretly automate their jobs, but here's a darker tale of a contract programmer who tried to force his employer to be dependent on him. Now he faces up to 10 years in prison, as well as a $250,000 fine. $250,000 for doing this. And by the way, some of those other stories, let's just go ahead and talk about those real quick. I've heard programmers do some really weird stuff. One of them was an IT specialist. So one was able to almost completely automate himself out of his job. And he did it voluntarily. He programmed macros, and he just did some very basic programming for data entry, and completely removed himself, and all he did was just essentially not even show up. He was just collecting a paycheck while his programs did everything for him. Unfortunately, his employers found out what he did and very quickly fired him because he was no longer needed. I've heard of other tales that tech outsourcing used to be a much bigger thing back in the day. It still happens all the time where, outsourcing basic IT jobs to India and places in China and things like that. Mainly India, though. A gentleman was outsourcing his work to an Indian tech company and essentially outsourced his own job, where he was paying a fraction of his paycheck to have his job done for him. Which, in all honesty, just in the economics of it all, unfortunately, that's really the only thing that makes sense, is that you have, if someone's willing to do your job for $2 an hour and you're still pulling in $25 an hour, $30 an hour, you have really no choice but to do that. It only makes financial sense to do that. And unfortunately, that's what tech companies are dealing with now, is that cheap labor outside the US is just too attractive to pass up. So those are some of the other stories we've heard. Although this one concerning David Tinley is his name. And by the way, he pleaded guilty, so we're not talking about an innocent person here. Pleaded guilty. He did this, and he admits to it. He's saying that David Tinley, 62, pleaded guilty in federal court to a charge of intentional damage to a protected computer, the U.S. Attorney's Office of the Western District of Pennsylvania said in a press release. I've never heard of that charge, intentional damage to a protected computer. Probably a, yeah. Interesting. So Tinley had been hired by a U.S. unit of Siemens, the German-based tech conglomerate, to create custom automated spreadsheets. The company used these spreadsheets to manage orders for electrical equipment. Tinley planted logic bombs in the spreadsheets, the government alleged. Logic bombs are bits of malicious code that disrupt the program when specific conditions are met, like a specific time on a specific date. And obviously you can see where an independent contractor or, kind of an as-needed coder would put these in and make himself irreplaceable. So in this case, the logic bombs were timed to go off every few years, the government alleged, causing the spreadsheet to experience glitches like error messages and size changes to on-screen buttons, according to a report from Law 360. And when the program glitched, the company would bring back Tinley to fix it. He fixed the system by pushing back the date that these spreadsheets would stop working again. He would push back the date, the spreadsheets would stop working, and, well, hey, everything would go on. So obviously he had it. So again, to kind of summarize there, whenever the date would pass, everything would work fine for a couple of years. So I guess they would be satisfied with his work for long enough. And then things would start messing up. And, well, if everything worked fine for years, it couldn't be, the coder who made this. It has to be something completely random. And, of course, you have to bring back the person who coded it to fix it. And, hey, he could get it done in a matter of hours. And you were happy to pay his fee if he got it done quickly and efficiently. And of course, all he had to do was to go in and change the date. Instead of it being 2019 that it messed up, it'd be 2021 that it messed it up. So here we go. He said that he was busted in 2016 when he was away on vacation and Siemens had to put an urgent order through the system, which had begun glitching according to Law 360. The circumstances reportedly forced Tinley to share the employees his password that protected the system's code, revealing the logic bomb. Tinley's lawyer said he never made any money by being hired to go in and fix the spreadsheet, arguing that his motivation was to protect his proprietary work. And again, he pled guilty. So saying that it was only to protect his work, kind of falls flat. Even so, prosecutors argued that the situation met the $5,000 in damages needed to label it a felony because Siemens spent about $42,000 on investigation into the damages that he may have caused. Tinley's plea included an agreement to pay restitution for those costs and forfeit 2 laptops. That's in addition to his sentencing, where he'll face the prospect of jail time and a fine, saying that it's not unusual for programmers found guilty of planting logic bombs to go to jail. This happened again in 2008 when a system admin was sentenced to 30 months over his failed logic bomb at his employer Medco after it spun off of Merck and he feared being laid off. The system administrator pleaded guilty to planting the bomb, the logic bomb, I want to be very clear about that, which was designed to delete a bunch of data after he left the company. Another story saying that in 2018, an Atlanta judge sentenced a database programmer to 2 years in prison after he pleaded guilty to planting a logic bomb in U.S. Army's payroll databases. Yeah, don't mess with the U.S. Army. they have good lawyers. They have really good lawyers. He planted the logic bomb after his employers lost the contract to continue managing those databases, and saying that the logic bomb did go off, deleting data that prevented the U.S. Army reservists from being paid and deployed on time. They spent about $2.6 million investigating and repairing their system. They did restore all the data, and the man was ordered to pay $1.5 million in restitution and received jail time. So it's not as uncommon as I thought. I thought it was interesting because it hadn't been done before, but I guess it happens occasionally, and it's just not a good thing. So there you have it. The horrible thing is he wouldn't have been caught if he didn't take a vacation. If he had been the one to fix it every single time, then hey, he would never have been caught. But I'm not telling you how to get away with it. I'm saying don't do it because you will go to jail. It's a bad thing. So there you go. Okay, so there's that article. Very, very interesting. Again, that was from yesterday, but I found it so interesting it warranted going over again. So let's go ahead and talk about. So we don't get into politics. We don't get into politics here very often, and when we do, we get chewed out for it. It's not really what Computer America is known for. Now, what we are known for is covering when politics bleeds into technology. So there is a Democratic presidential candidate called Tulsi Gabbard who is suing Google for $50 million, and I felt like covering this because this seems to be the way presidential elections are going to go. So much about what happens in the U.S. presidential election system is about getting your name out there. And what happens when tech giants decide, is this the tech giants' fault? Is this the presidential candidate, does she have any grounds for actually doing this? Who knows? Let's get into the article and find out. So this is from the New York Times, saying that Representative Tulsi Gabbard, the longshot presidential candidate from Hawaii, said in a federal lawsuit that Google infringed on her free speech when it briefly suspended her campaign's advertising account after the first Democratic debate in June, saying that on Thursday in a federal court in Los Angeles is believed to be the first time a presidential candidate has sued a major technology firm. Which, when you really think about it, how much of a presidential candidacy operates in the social media sphere? I'm not talking about Google+. I'm talking about on Facebook, on Twitter, on, of course, Google for buying ads. Think about online advertising when it comes to presidential candidates. It can really make or break someone. Just getting your name out there and getting your name to the exact people that you want. Saying that in a twist that reflects Ms. Gabbard's unorthodox political views, the claim that her speech was stifled by Google is similar to complaints made over the last year in Republican circles. Few Democrats have raised similar concerns. Big tech companies like Google are getting increased scrutiny by lawmakers and regulators around the world for a variety of issues, including their influence on political debate, their handling of consumer data, and the aggressive way they compete with smaller companies. So to put another little pin in this, yesterday, if you were listening to the program, think about this. They being the FTC. The FTC is obviously an extension of government regulation. The FTC just announced yesterday that they're going to be looking into large tech companies in terms of monopolies and how big they are, how they operate, what they do. And think about this. No names were given for who they were looking to investigate. They only said large online retailers and tech companies. And after that, shares of, Apple, Google, Facebook, I don't think Microsoft, but it was, but I know for sure it was like Google, essentially any large tech company. They all lost about 30 to 40 billion dollars in share price. just because there was the possibility that they could be investigated for monopolistic tendencies. So when they say that big tech companies like Google are under increased scrutiny, yeah, the FTC has opened a formal antitrust investigation into its business practices, including Facebook. So, Tulsi Now Inc., the campaign committee for Ms. Gabbard, said that Google suspended the campaign's advertising account for 6 hours on June 27 and 28th, obstructing its ability to raise money and spread her message to potential voters. Think about that, $50 million for 6 hours of not being able to put out ads. And after the first Democratic debate, Ms. Gabbard was briefly the most searched for candidate in Google. Her campaign wanted to capitalize on the attention she was receiving by buying ads that would place on websites at the top of the search results for her name. Which makes sense, if someone watched the Democratic presidential debate and they search for Tulsi Gabbard, obviously maybe the first few things that come up are going to be thanks to Google's algorithm, time relevant articles, or they're going to be kind of op-eds based on her, but maybe they won't be, maybe the first thing that won't pop up will be her campaign website. And people might have problems finding that, and clearly you can see why an ad being the first thing that people see when they search for her might be visit the website, support her, check out some of her other viewpoints, things like that. She wants her website to be essentially the first thing people see when they search for her name. I get that. The lawsuit said that Gabbard campaign believed its emails were being placed in spam folders in Gmail at a disproportionately high rate when compared with emails from other Democratic candidates. That seems like really hard to prove. And honestly, that could happen for a number of reasons, including the fact that maybe her emails were worded in such a way that they were just caught by more spam filters. The Google has, or I should say Gmail, which is obviously part of Alphabet, Gmail has just this massive artificial intelligence when it comes to sorting spam and non-spam. So for the why that might have happened, even if it's true, it's really hard to prove, even if it was, but could be any number of factors and not any kind of discernible effort to discredit her. So Google has automated a system that flag unusual activity on advertisers' accounts, including large spending charges, to prevent fraud. And saying that in this case, our system triggered a suspension and the account was reinstated shortly thereafter. We are proud to offer ad products to help campaigns connect directly with voters, and we do so without bias towards party or political ideology. But her appeal has crossed traditional party lines. She has drawn support from both the left and the right for, of course, talking about her stances, which we're not really going to get into here. But one last comment saying that how she kind of feels about breaking up Google and things like this, saying, quote, Google's discriminatory actions against my campaign are reflective of how dangerous their complete dominance over internet search is, and how the increasing dominance of big tech companies over our public discourse threatens our core American values. This is a threat to free speech, fair elections, and our democracy, and I intend to fight back on behalf of all Americans, end quote. Again, that was Tulsi Gabbard. So, yeah, like I've said so often, and we're going to go ahead and end the article there, but like I've said so often about this kind of thing, we've never really been into this. Back in 2008 was really the first time that, obviously with the election of Barack Obama, that was the first time that they kind of credited Twitter and Facebook and this idea that social media was the way that you reach voters. And we saw how powerful it was with getting him elected. It was really credited with, it was really kind of revolutionary what happened back in 2008 when social media was finally past its infancy, GeoCities, MySpace page days, and it was really credited with kind of turning a turning point in how elections or how campaigning is done. Door to door was not as effective. Phone calls were not as effective. Emails were not as effective. Letters and phones and that kind of thing, they're just not as effective as campaigning online. So 2008, 2012, and of course all the midterms as well. But 2016 was another huge one where we saw this huge crack in the system with Cambridge Analytica and everything that happened with that election. We talked about that plenty here on the program. Man, what a quagmire. And it looks like we are still in the middle of, this has been really great. This is how it's kind of been done. And now we are learning that, hey, this is not all the perfect system. There are going to be problems and we have to figure those out. So everyone, when we come back, we have plenty more articles. We'll be back. More Computer America right after this. Everyone, stay tuned.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. That's 800-215-4461.
We are all Brother Wolf. 10 years ago, a group of locals banded together to create positive change. We took animals into our homes, held adoption events at local retailers, and talked to the community about our mission to help build a no-kill Asheville. A decade later, we have achieved so many victories for animals in need. There's been so much progress, yet there's still so much to do. As part of our year-long celebration, we encourage you to become a member of our special Compassionate Circle program. With a monthly donation of $10 or more, you will have behind-the-scenes access to the work we are doing at Brother Wolf. Our goal is to reach 1,000 members because we receive no government funding. Working together, we can help build and sustain no-kill communities. Learn more at compassionatecircle.bwar.org. We are a 501c3 tax-deductible organization.
And welcome back to the Computer America Show. It is 32 minutes past the hour. Ladies and gentlemen, if you missed any part of today's show, please feel free to go to wherever podcasts are heard. And you can, of course, subscribe to Computer America. You can be downloaded directly to your smart device. And you can listen to us, take us anywhere, or time shift us. Hey, it's just that simple. Of course, we love it when you tune into IRN. We love it when you tune in to Computer America. And hey, get us live, get us on, get us when you can. That's perfectly fine. However you can listen to us, we love that. Thank you so much. Now, let's go ahead and continue on. We are, just finished up this one about Tulsi Gabbard, and tech companies and politics, they matter. And by the way, we actually have another article that kind of relates to that. So let's see if I can find that one here real quick. And I think I just accidentally closed that. Okay, here we go. So what I mean, and that whole thing about censorship and what have you, I really don't know. It's going to be a very messy situation. And I say that because of this right here. Facebook tops Amazon and Google in second quarter lobbying spending. So think about this. Facebook just got that $5 billion fine from the FTC. They, which has been touted as the largest fine on a privately held company, or I should say a publicly held company, the largest fine handed out by the FTC ever in the United States, ever. $5 billion is just that. So obviously, when you think about the fact that they are paying $5 billion in a fine. And then on top of that, they agreed to 10 years of government oversight for making sure that they, respect privacy and how they handle things like that. You really think, oh wow, Facebook must be, hey, they're really getting the screws put to them. But no, here's something that I've told my family and kind of had private discussions about this. Facebook, as much as they keep saying, we want the government to step in and tell us the rules to play by. We want to abide by the rules. There just aren't any clear ones. Please give us some direction. That would be good if this article didn't exist, saying that Facebook, again, tops Amazon and Google in second quarter lobbying spending. So even though they're saying, hey, give us direction, tell us what to do, tell us how to do it, check this one out. It's more the fact that Facebook is spending millions of dollars in the right places. It's kind of like acupuncture. It's very precise donations to get where they want to go. They are shaping the rules that they have to play by. So it's not even like, oh, we're just this poor defenseless company that just needs some guidance. No, they're the ones pulling the strings behind the scenes as well, especially when it comes to discussions about how to self-regulate, or at least how the government should regulate them. They're at the table. These conversations aren't happening outside of Facebook's reach. They're happening very much within it. So let's go ahead. This is by MarketWatch, and saying that Facebook Inc. shelled out $4.1 million on lobbying Washington in the second quarter, topping the outlays by other so-called FANG companies, and keeping the tech giant on pace for another record year of spending to influence lawmakers. And that's the point, is that, hey, Facebook is just spending money on lawmakers like they're just showering them in money. Just please don't hurt us too bad. Here's how we want things run. Yeah. Amazon Inc. wasn't far behind with $4 million in spending. So, really think about the size of these companies. $4 million from Amazon, $4.1 million for Facebook, spending in the same period. It also stayed on record pace according to a disclosure filed Monday. And really, when you think about it, that's just for the quarter, like the second quarter. So if that keeps in line, you're looking at almost $16 million a year spent on lawmakers who are going to write the regulation. And as you recall, the FTC is looking into antitrust there. Yeah, these are the same lawmakers that if the FTC finds something wrong, or if they find that they need to break them up, the lawmakers are going to be the ones to have to write the rules, and they are being treated very generously by the tech companies. So check this out. Alphabet Inc.'s Google spent $2.9 million on from April through June, and said that they laid out $1.8 million, and Netflix Inc. spent a relatively modest $200,000. Lots of money from tech companies going there. So they said, and by the way, those antitrust probes are actually coming from the Justice Department, not the FTC. My bad, correction. And as some politicians say, the Silicon Valley titans should get broken up. In the wake of Facebook's Cambridge Analytica data harvesting scandal and other foul-ups, the companies are also facing greater scrutiny over how they handle user data, as well as how they manage misinformation and political bias. Lawmakers have talked up the potential for bipartisan law that would lead to better safeguards for personal data, though analysts say that it's unlikely because of a partisan split over the potential for federal preemption of state laws. So there you go. That's the end of that article. But obviously, this is something that I want everyone to know, is that when it comes to lobbying dollars spent, like tech outperforms, fossil fuel, gas, oil, that kind of thing. Really, tech and cable and telecommunications industries top lobbying dollars like crazy. So when you think about, lawmakers are doing XYZ to these companies, and they're going after them, they're hitting them where it hurts. No, they are being showered with lavish gifts. So, and by the way, you may also notice here on the article, well, you weren't really seeing it here on the on the video portion, but Google and Alphabet, I should say really Alphabet, they are having a really good time. I know that we don't really talk about stocks too often, but when we do, check this one out, just because it's front and center here, saying that Alphabet stock saw second quarter earnings crush estimates. So whenever people are estimating that, hey, Alphabet, and of course through its search ads and things like that, they say that Google is, of course, doing really, really well. They're up about 8%, actually over 8%. As when I opened the article the first time, it was 8%. Now it's at 8.5%. And when you think about how much money that is, well, you're looking at share prices going from $1,100, just under 11 or just about $1,100 before trading hours, and then they opened to the numbers, and now they're looking at about $1,200. So it went up about $100 a share in the course of a couple of hours, and all that is because, well, they beat projections. They reported a second quarter net income of about $9.95 billion. And they said that, their revenue was $38.94 billion, up 19% from the same quarter a year ago. And analysts surveyed at about, let's just say that they were expecting much less. So they're doing well. Google's doing really well. Just want to throw that one out there. And Cambridge Analytica. Yeah, and by the way, Bike Shop Guru in the chat room. Yeah, we talked about the whole Cambridge Analytica thing. It really, really, really was a mess, and it really shows that tech companies are not immune either from manipulation from within or without, but they can also be utilized as giant bludgeons to influence politics. So tech companies definitely have to be held accountable for what they're doing. Now, we continue on, a lot more articles here. Why don't we go ahead and, politics to politics, kind of politics. Robocalls, everyone's favorite. I have met so many people, and I count myself included, even though we run the business here at Computer America, and our business line, we try to answer it as much as we can. But let's face it, robocalls have made the telephone almost obsolete in their own right. If you don't recognize the number, and especially worrisome, you could say, well, I don't even recognize the area code, so I'm not going to pick it up, or I don't recognize, I don't know anyone from Bangalore, India, so I'm not going to pick up. You can't even rely on that anymore thanks to spoofing, because, hey, it's almost your number, and sometimes it's exactly your number. Well, this new bipartisan bill could end our robocall hell. And that's what this article is from Gizmodo. Del Cameron saying that 2 Republicans and 1 independent were the only holdouts Wednesday as the U.S. House of Representatives passed the Stopping Bad Robocalls Act, which I would argue that all robocalls are bad. But they said that it was a nearly unanimous vote, saying that the chairman of the House Energy and Commerce Committee prescribed strict regulations around the use of automatic telephone dialing systems or other artificial or pre-recorded messages. The bill specifically requires any entity making robocalls to first obtain consent of those being called, which, honestly, if you have to obtain consent, you can talk to Facebook about this. If it's or not even Facebook, but really anyone out there, if it's an opt-in system as opposed to an opt-out system, no one ever opts in, and on top of that, no one ever opts out. Like, honestly, it's like a 95-98% rate that if you say, hey, we're going to do X with your data, click here to opt out. 95 to 98% of people are going to be too lazy, not read it, delete it, not opt out. And then as opposed to opt in, 95 to 98%, yet again, will not opt in because, hey, that's effort. It takes effort to change opt in or opt out. So when they say that you must obtain consent to be robocalled, guess what? No one is going to do that. The bill would also require the creation of reliable mechanisms whereby consumers can withdraw their consent. Emergency services and certain non-commercial entities would be exempt from the new regulations. That makes sense for, let's say, if there's a national disaster or some kind of urgent warning, they need to be able to call people automatically and get the message out. But clearly, this would be targeted at people who are trying to sell you life insurance, dental insurance, credit monitoring, or just any kind of bad robocalls. Saying that, and they have a quote here saying that, quote, "We're proud of our strong support our Bipartisan Stopping Bad Robocalls Act received this afternoon and look forward to working with our colleagues in the Senate to produce a bill that the President can sign into law. The American people are counting on us to help end the robocall epidemic, and we will deliver for them." So here's the thing. Regardless of what they're saying here, it really doesn't matter because what they're already doing is punishable by the Federal Communications Commission. Every robocall that you receive, you can go to the FCC website, you can report it, you can say, hey, I received this robocall from this number. Robocalls are technically illegal and already. This saying that you have to obtain consent, it kind of further edifies that it's illegal. The problem, though, is actually catching them. I mean, one gentleman was caught in South Florida. They had another one just recently who was also the king of robocalls in South Florida, where they were responsible for 2.6 billion robocalls over the course of a year. It doesn't take a lot of time, effort, or energy to set up these systems, and one individual or just one organization can affect hundreds of millions of people, can make billions of calls at a time. They're already illegal. They know that. And that's why they set up shell corporations. That's why they set up corporations outside the United States, outside the jurisdiction of the FCC, of the FTC, what have you, so that they aren't touchable. And especially if they're coming from out of the country and just use spoof to make it look like it's coming from within your area code, it's almost impossible to track that down and actually actually find these people. So it's already illegal. This legislation working its way through the system to make it even more illegal, that really doesn't work. But I'm not going to leave this article by just saying, hey, this problem will continue. There's an answer, and it's not a legislative one. The answer is a technological one. If you haven't heard about it, you can go look it up. It's called Stir. I think it's Shake and Stir. Actually, now that I think about it, it's Shaken. Shaken/Stir. Framework, and you can go check that out. I just googled it. It's up on the FCC website, and essentially it's saying that you can combat spoof robocalls with caller ID authentication, which is exactly what Shake and Stir will do. If nothing else, this will say that think of it like HTTPS for phone calls, where we've talked about that when it comes to websites. You pay a third party to verify that, hey, if you visit Computer America, we work with a third party to say that, yes, we are Computer America, so that you can ask essentially someone else and say, hey, is this really Computer America? And they'll say, oh yeah, sure it is. They registered with us. Same thing happens with Shake and Stir, essentially saying, yes, this phone number that's calling you is indeed this phone number. It's not just a random spoofed number. So that's going to be the answer to a lot of these robocall problems. And because if you can eliminate spoofing, you can eliminate, essentially say that you don't want phone calls from certain areas. You take out that sense of mystery. You take out that sense of this could be anyone. We'll never be able to track them down. And now you can actually track down where these calls are coming from. It's much needed. It's an improvement in technology. This is improving the standard. It's going to be released sometime in the next year, I believe. So, hey, caller ID spoofing, and by extension, I think a large part of spam robocalls are going to be are going to be a thing of the past come next year. So, just so everyone knows, there is hope. Now, this next article, check this one out. Speaking of hope, sure hope Airbus does not become the next. Who was the airline that had the problem with? Was it Boeing? With their flight system control with planes. Anyways, another plane malfunction, and obviously you don't want software bugs in planes because we saw what could happen, and it's very, very tragic. Check this one. And all you need to do is update your software because it's a bug and it can be patched, but actually patching these things where some Airbuses are, well, hey, let's face it, some of these things are 20 years old. You just don't patch these things very often. They're just meant to run and run and run until this happens. So this is from the Register saying that Airbus A350 software bug forces airlines to turn planes off and on every 149 hours. You heard that right. The correct answer to fixing your plane is, have you tried turning it on, or have you tried turning it off and back on again? The classic. Some of the models of Airbus A350 airliners still need to be hard rebooted after exactly 149 hours, saying that despite warnings from the EU Aviation Safety Agency, which I would assume to be the European Union's version of the FAA, they said that they first issued 2 years ago. In a mandatory airworthiness directive reissued earlier this week, EASA urged operators to turn A350s off and on again to prevent partial or total loss of some avionics systems or functions. They said that it was effective from tomorrow, exempts only those new A350 who have been patched and modified software preloaded onto the production line. For all other A350-941s, operations need to completely power the airliner down before it reaches 149 hours of continuous operation time. And I don't know much about planes. I don't know much about these particular planes and really the aviation industry in general. I know that planes are scheduled to take full advantage of their planes. They're meant to be kept, they go from one stop to another. They're meant to keep running and running and running. I think Airbuses are a little bit different than your usual jumbo liners because they're meant to just, ferry passengers from one location to another, hence Airbus. But still, I think it's completely possible that these planes are powered on or kept powered on for 149 hours, which my math is completely horrible today. So we're going to ask the almighty computer. 149 divided by 24 hours, you're looking at 6.2. So about 6 days and what is that? 20 hours, just under 21 hours. 6 days, 20 hours. After that, your plane will, not work anymore. So there you go. Let's see. So the remedy for the problem is straightforward. According to the AD, install Airbus software updates for a permanent cure, or switch the airplane off and on again. Yeah. So and they have more about this, but essentially it just goes to show that when it comes to programming airplanes, not as easy as you think. Programming for something that is continuously flying thousands of feet in the air and traveling at hundreds of miles an hour, things slip through the crack. And I guess there really aren't as many high stakes as they are when it comes to, people's lives. So, bad news, good news, depending on how you look at it. This is open to a much larger conversation that we can have, and we're going to try to run through some of these articles as fast as we can. But I wanted to get this one in there. Check this one out. NBCUniversal. Yes, the content owners behind none other than The Office. Yes, that The Office. Saying that NBCUniversal plans to debut its streaming service in April. And you may have heard Netflix will be losing in 2020, or I think 2020 and 2021, they'll be losing The Office and Friends for obvious reasons. And we're about to get into those, saying that it will rely mostly on licensed content with The Office as a tentpole. And by the way, if you think, well, the Netflix loses The Office, whatever, The Office has been top 1 or top 2 most streamed show on Netflix almost its entire lifespan. It really goes to show just how popular the show is. The problem is, will people spend money to watch something that's been off the air for, I don't know, a while? And, will they go to yet another streaming service? That's really what's at stake here. So the streaming wars are intensifying with the likes of HBO, CBS, Disney, and of course you have places like Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, so on and so forth. There's just so many options out there, so divided. Can this even work? So now we know yet another major player will enter the battlefield, as NBCUniversal has pegged next April to launch as a launch window for its ad-supported streaming service. Yes, there will be ads on this platform, which, by the way, is one of the best reasons that Netflix continues to be one of the best. Lack of ads. So one of the cornerstones will be The Office. The sitcom is reportedly by far the most watched show on Netflix. The Office will still be available on that service through 2020, after which it will be NBCUniversal streaming exclusive. The show, of course, was a major success for NBC, and NBCUniversal outbid Netflix for the rights to the tune of $100 million a year. Don't expect to see Friends, another NBC mega hit, on the service though. That'll be HBO Max exclusive when it leaves Netflix next year. That's right, Netflix is losing, again, both Friends and The Office. I don't think that it's really going to hurt Netflix too much. I think it's more going to hurt everyone else because, man, it's great that those shows were on Netflix. It's horrible that they're being used as kind of the bait to get you into yet another $8, $10, $15 subscription service a month. And this time with ads. Oh boy. Burke said that NBCUniversal's platform will be the same underlying tech as Sky Now's TV. And they said that NBCUniversal's parent, Comcast, bought TV giant Sky last year, and the service will include some innovative ideas, he added, but it remains to be seen what those are. So just know there's a new one, and if you are looking forward to The Office, which again will be leaving Netflix after 2020, you'll have to go to NBCUniversal. So we're not going to talk about the other options to see it. There you go. So we have time for just one more story. Real quick. Okay, how about we talk about Nissan just real fast? And we may save some of these stories for later, but Nissan plans to lay off 12,500 workers after operating profits fall 98%. I didn't even know that was possible. So all automakers have been struggling, but Nissan is among the hardest hit, saying that Nissan says it will reduce global headcount by 12,500 people over the next 3 years after a brutal quarter that saw net income fall by 95% year over year. Automakers around the world have been struggling in recent months. Ford said earlier this year that it would cut 12,000 jobs in Europe, while General Motors has announced plans to eliminate thousands of jobs in a series of cuts. Nissan has been having a particularly rough time. Then Chairman Carlos Ghosn was arrested in November 2018 on corruption charges, creating a massive distraction for the company. Nissan has a complex set of financial relationships with Renault and Mitsubishi that make management of the company more complicated. Those struggles were evident in the latest financial results, which cover the April to June period. The revenue fell 13% from a year earlier, while operating profits fell more than 98%, where they had a dismal 0.1% operating margin, which meant that they are spending all of their money actually making the cars, and they're not making any money. Which, as a company, it's kind of your purpose. So they believe that Nissan's fundamental problem is an excess of manufacturing capacity. The company is aiming to reduce its global production capacity by 10%, and Nissan also plans to reduce the size of its product lineup by at least 10%. So that means that they will be reducing some of their less successful models. Nissan announced plans to cut 4,800 jobs earlier this year, but the company upped the number to 10,000 earlier this week and is now up to 12,000. So Nissan, best of luck. Not looking good. So everyone out there, thank you so much for tuning into Computer America. Hopefully you had fun. You learned something along the way. We kept up to date. Plenty of stories that we didn't get to. Check out computeramerica.com. It will have everything you need to know and some of the stuff that we didn't cover. Everyone, thank you again so much. Tune in tomorrow on the program. More computer and technology news. I'm really having fun doing these segments, and hopefully you are as well. 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. Hopefully you can join us. Everyone, thank you so much. Actually, tomorrow may be, oh my God, not Scott Chover, but Nathan Evans from Pop Zara Magazine. Always a fun time. Everyone, thank you. Catch you tomorrow. Bye.